Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Welcome back, my esteemed students, to a new lesson of English, lesson number 11 in our course books. This lesson has the title of Safety in the Lab, and lab means here laboratory. Let's do the first task. Task number A. Match the words and the phrases from 1 to 7 to the pictures from A to G. Here on the right we have some pictures A, B, C, D, E, F and G, and on the left we have 7 words. Number 1, film cupboard. Number 2, first aid books. 3, label. 4, laboratory coat. 5, protective glasses. 6, fire extinguisher and glove books. We have to match between the words and the pictures. Now number 1, film cupboard. D. This is the film cupboard. First aid books. This is the first aid books. Number E. Label. Number 3. Label. This is number B. B is label. Sorry. Laboratory coat. Number 4. Laboratory coat. This is number C. Number C is a laboratory coat. And protective glasses. These are the protective glasses. Number A. And fire extinguisher. This bottle is the fire extinguisher. It has number F. And finally glove books has number G, or is number G. Now after knowing the names of these things, we can see the answers. You can write down the answers, my students, in your books. Now after that, let's move to number B. Number B says, put these words in the correct order to make captions for the cartoons. Here we have disordered words, or words which are disordered, and we have to put them in the correct order to make captions for the cartoons. We have 5 cartoons and 5 sentences. Number 1, happened, careful, you'd, it, have, been, if, wouldn't, and more. Here if we want to make a full sentence, we can say, it wouldn't have happened if you'd been more careful. It would not have happened if you had been more careful. Number 2, read that, I'd the bottle, first, I the label, wish and on. I wish that I would read, I'd read the label on the bottle first. I wish that I'd read the label on the bottle first. Number 3, switched off, that wire, touched, before, should have, you, the electricity. The sentence becomes, after ordering its word, you should have switched off the electricity before you touched that wire. You should have switched off the electricity before you touched that wire. Number 4. Glasses he'd damaged if would not worn have his eyes protective. Khalid. Here the subject is Khalid. Khalid would not have damaged his eyes. Khalid wouldn't have damaged his eyes if he had worn protective glasses. Yeah. Number 5. Would have the reaction I would now put on so violent if was going lab could to be and I. I would known the reaction was going to be so violent. So if I had known the reaction was going to be so violent, I would have put on a lab coat. I would have put on a lab coat. After doing this exercise orally, we can see the full sentences now. The first sentence is, it would not have happened if you'd been more careful. Number 2, I wish that I'd read the label on the bottle first. 3, you should have switched off the electricity before you touched that wire. Number 4, Khalid wouldn't have damaged his eyes if he'd worn protective glasses. And number 5, if I had known the reaction was going to be violent, I would have put on a lab coat. Now let's move to number C, work in pairs. Discuss the signs below that we might see in a lab. What do you think they mean? We have here 5 signs. All of them have meanings. Yeah. Now the first one means radioactive. This sign means radioactive. The second one, poisonous. This one means poisonous. Number 3, the third sign, which has this shape, means explosive. Explosive. Number 4 means flammable. Flammable. And finally, this sign means electrical hazard. Electrical danger. Here are the meaning of the previous signs. Number 1, radioactive. Number 2, poisonous. 3, explosive. 4, flammable. 5, electrical hazard. You can write these words, yes, in your books under the signs. Under the signs. Now let's do practice number 2, D. Work in pairs. List the materials or equipment found in a lab which correspond to the dangers in exercise number C. What safety steps should you take to prevent these risks? Here we have some possible answers. You should not touch. You should not touch. Number 1. Number 2, you should stay away. 3, you should wear protective clothing. You must read the labels carefully. You should take advice from an expert. You mustn't drink, eat, or touch these substances. You should take particular care in handling this material or substance. You should dispose of it. Means throw it away when finished. Don't keep it. Yeah. You should dispose of it very carefully. You should take particular care in this area. So all of these things are so important if you are working in a lab. Now, after that, let's move to our workbook exercise number A. Number A says, rewrite these sentences in the conditional type 3. Here we have an example. Samia got an electric shock. She touched a wire when her hands were wet. We can say, if she had dried her hands, she wouldn't have got a shock. After that, we have 6 sentences. Number 1, let's read them. Nasser wore sandals in the chemistry lab. He burned his feet with acid. Number 2, Hanan used a water extinguisher on an electrical fire. There was an explosion. 3, Samira didn't use glove books. She burned her hands. 4, Abdullah didn't ask for help. He had a serious accident. Number 5, Nadia forgot to use the fume cupboard. She released toxic fumes into the lab. And number 6, the students didn't learn about first aid. They could not help Ali when he cut his hand. After reading these sentences, we can make all of them or put all of them in the conditional number 3 or type 3. Here the rule is we have to put the verb in past perfect and the result clause. We can use here would or wouldn't in negative plus have after it and then past participle or verb 3. Yeah, let's do the first sentence. Number 1, Nasser wore sandals in the chemistry lab. He burned his feet with acid. We can make it as follows. If Nasser hadn't worn sandals in the chemistry lab, he wouldn't have burned his feet with acid. Yeah. Number 2, Hanan used the water extinguisher on an electrical fire. There was an explosion. If Hanan had not used a water extinguisher, there would not have been an explosion. Number 3, Samira didn't use a glove books. She burnt her hands. If Samira had used the glove books, she wouldn't have burnt her hands. Number 4, Abdullah didn't ask for help. He had a serious accident. If Abdullah had asked for help, he would not have had a serious accident. Number 5, Nadia forgot to use the fume cupboard. She released toxic fumes into the lab. If Nadia hadn't forgotten to use fume cupboard, she would not have released toxic fumes into the lab. And finally, number 6, the students did not learn about first aid. They could not help Ali when he cut his hand. If the students had learned about first aid, they would have been able to help Ali when he cut his hand. Here, as we have said earlier, the main rule is we put the if clause in past perfect and the result clause in using would, have, and verb 3, past participle. Now you can look at these sentences carefully and write them down in your books, your workbooks, on page 29. After doing this exercise, exercise number A, let's move to the last exercise, exercise number B. Exercise B says, choose two examples from exercise number A. Write what the person said using I wish, then give the person advice using should have. Example: I wish I had dried my hands before I touched that wire. You should have dried your hands before you touched that wire. Here we have to write two examples or two advices. In front of us we have possible answers like, I wish I had not worn sandals. I wish I had used the correct fire extinguisher. I wish I had used the glove books. I wish I had asked for help. I wish I had remembered to use the fume cupboard. I wish we had learned about first aid. Here we have used the past perfect in all of these sentences. Now we have other possible answers. You should have worn sandals. If you want to give anybody else a piece of advice, you can say, you should have worn sandals. You should have used the correct fire extinguisher. You should have used a glove box. You should have asked for help. You should have remembered to use the fume cupboard. You should have learned about first aid. Now, by doing this exercise number B, on page 29 in your workbooks, my students, we can end our today's lesson. So, finally and eventually, I want to say to everybody of you, goodbye.